What's going on, everyone? Welcome to the fourth video in the 12-part video series called Cashing In on Short-Term Rentals. My name is Alex Jarbo, and this video series is brought to you by my company, the Build Don't Buy Short-Term Rental Masterclass, and the Strategic Advisory Board. So in the last video, what we talked about was property analysis, just looking for unique properties. The video before that, we talked about market analysis. So in this video, what we're going to be talking about is actually underwriting a property about 80% of the way there, not including the mortgage payment. We're just going to try to figure out what your potential property can make. So I'm going to walk you guys how to do that. So the very first thing what you want to do, this is the easiest, cheapest, free method to do it. And it's also one of the most accurate because you'll know what these properties are renting out for. So we're just going to choose one of these categories up here. Honestly, when you're just first starting, you're probably going to be building a smaller property because it's going to be cheaper. Cheaper doesn't necessarily mean bad. It means cheaper. If you could build a unique, smaller property, it's going to do really well on the short-term rental sites. So what I like to do is I like to go over to the tiny house category. Up top on the Airbnb homepage, so tiny house category, and we're just going to start scrolling through. And like I said, how you're going to try to find a property that's similar to the one that you decided on in the last video. And you're going to see, you're going to try to find a property, again, that is unique, that would fit unique in your market. So say we're looking for a property here in Asheville, North Carolina, and we're going to look for a tiny house that would do really well, that would fit the landscape, that we feel like would fit the landscape of our market. So just scrolling through and looking at and trying to find like an average range for a tiny house. So these numbers are sort of all over the place, but the number I currently keep seeing is anywhere between $100 right here to about $130 or $140 a night. So that's going to be our range, anywhere between $100 to $140, your average daily rate. This doesn't take into account weekend rates, weekday rates. Weekends are going to be more. You're going to be able to get more than on Friday and Saturday than you are going to be from like Tuesday, Wednesday, Thursday. So I see a range here of anywhere between $100 a night to $140 a night just by scrolling through here. You can see 120. 125, all these like 200s and maybe like these 200s, these 300s, those are sort of anomalies in the baseline that probably wouldn't rent as much, like in terms of they're going to have a higher occupancy. So by scrolling through, I keep seeing $100 a night, $140 a night, and that's usually pretty average across almost all markets, is anywhere between $100 to $140 a night for a tiny house. So we're going to sort of average that number, 100 to 140, and we're going to meet right in the middle and say like 120. Again, these are just very basic numbers. So, and I put together this Excel document, or this Word document, very, very simple. We have your revenue, which is going to be 100% occupancy, what the most your property can make. So right now, we just figured out like what our average daily rate's going to be. In this industry, it's called ADR, what your ADR is going to be. And we just came up with $120. We saw a range of 100 to about 140 for a tiny house. And then we sort of met in the middle at 120. So the next thing what you're going to do is you're going to put in $120 times 365 days, because that's the entire year. What your property can make if it's booked out at 100% occupancy, which is, if you multiply 120 by 365, you get $43,800. Again, this is just for a smaller house. Next thing, what you want to do, you want to underwrite the property at anywhere between 65 to 75%. What that means is your property, like there's going to be vacancies when you're first starting, but I like to be very conservative in my numbers and underwrite the property if it's only occupied at 75%. What I'm going to be teaching you guys in this video series is how to get to 90, 95, 100% occupancy. But just to be conservative, I like to underwrite them at 75%. So 75% of 365 days comes out to be 273 days. That's what 75% occupancy for the entire year would look like for your property. So you would take your average daily rate, again, which is 120, and you would multiply it by 273 days. That gives you an average daily range, or a yearly number of 32,760. Next thing what you're gonna do, you're gonna put in a 3% Airbnb fee. If you list your property in Airbnb or VRBO, they usually take a 3% cut from the host, which is not that bad to be able just to essentially get free eyeballs on your property. So, and again, some of these are pretty general numbers. So, and again, these are yearly numbers as well, times 3%. So Airbnb would be taking essentially a management fee of about $982. Electricity, I just put a general number of $150. It might be less. Honestly, say 75 for a smaller property like that. Internet, this is $200. This is more of like high-speed internet. You don't need a crazy high-speed internet in like some of these smaller properties. So let's say $100 a month. Put trash removal, 50, landscaping, we can say maybe 120. And then that leaves you with your effective gross income. So this is your number before you pay your mortgage payment. This is a very general thing. You usually don't include the PITI, it's principal and interest, taxes, and insurance. You usually don't include taxes and insurance in your overall number for just the sake of just keeping things simple. We're going to here. We're not going to figure out the mortgage payment right now. That's going to be figured down the road in a later video. But what we're going to do is we're going to sort of take this number and subtract all the rest of these numbers to get your effective gross income, what the property can potentially make prior to your mortgage payment. And again, I'll show you guys how to get partners, mortgages, everything in a later video, because I know that's like super important for this. So right now, after all expensive, not including your mortgage payment, you're looking at $42,473. If you, actually, I did that wrong. I did that off of the top number. So you want to do it off of your 75% occupancy. So 32,760 minus that, minus your electricity, minus your internet, minus your trash removal, and then minus your landscaping. And again, you can include some other costs that would be unique to your area here, but you're looking at $31,433 prior to any mortgage payments or anything. So that's where your numbers would be if you just built one of these small tiny houses. And again, I'll show you guys how to get financing. We're going to use tiny houses as an example throughout this whole video series because in my opinion, it's one of the easiest things, one of the easiest properties to purchase or build as well because it's a smaller property. But that's how much you could make potentially without a mortgage payment just off of one property, one tiny house. These tiny houses range anywhere between 300 square feet to a maximum of 700 square foot. I wouldn't go over that out for a tiny house. So that's how I underwrite the properties is I go through, I choose a category, or I try to find a property that I wrote down in video 3, like a unique property that would do well in my landscape. And then I just look at the pricing, what the property is making in that market, just using a free tool like Airbnb's like home pages or their tabs here, and figuring out what your property could potentially make, and then from there plugging it in, figuring out what your top line number would be if it's rented out for 365 days a year, and then I underwrite at a 75% occupancy to be conservative, and then an Airbnb fee of 3%, electricity, you can include any other utilities in there if you want. And then we haven't determined mortgage payment yet because we'll figure out how much it's going to cost to build and just average numbers based off of every market's going to be different with that. But that's essentially how I underwrite my properties or figure out how much they could potentially make prior to mortgage payment. So hopefully you guys have enjoyed this video. This is video number 4. And in the next video, we're going to be talking about, all right, cut that right there. You want to edit that because I completely forgot. All right, so we're going to cut back. So hopefully you guys have enjoyed this video. This is video number 4 out of the 12 that we're doing. This was specifically on underwriting and property analysis at a very high level. Last video in video 3, we talked about just how to choose a unique property. Video before that, we talked about how to choose a market. And then in video number 5, the next video, what we're going to be talking about are the 2 people that you need on your development team. So stay tuned for that. I'm super excited for you guys. Thanks.